Hi guys and welcome to IFA Rambling 2015. I'm not there yet myself, unfortunately, but what I'm going to do is I will check all the blogs, all the YouTube channels to find out the best stuff and give you then a recap after the day to get you a perspective of all the good things and all the interesting things you should maybe know of. I won't go into everything, but the good stuff I will pick out. So let's start with the first thing. Gigaset presented phones, but those aren't that interesting because I don't think they will ever make it out of the European market anyways. What they are pretty much are iPhone clones. They have a smaller one, a mid-range one and a high-end one, 5 to 5.5 inches. They look quite nice, like I said already, like an iPhone. Decent specs. They have one has a 615, Snapdragon 810 and so on. Quite okay in terms of battery size, but like I said, really nothing that interesting because they won't make it outside because it's Gigaset after all, but it's at least nice to see some other companies trying something as well. Then we got the Acer Predator 8, which is an 8-inch gaming tablet for Android. Also not that interesting for a few reasons. First of all, it has the Atom X7 Z8700, which isn't a bad CPU, but I don't think it is quite that compatible maybe in some ways like a Snapdragon would be. Performance should be there. We also have 4 front-facing speakers, but one thing to consider which makes it less interesting for me is it is made by Acer. They don't really have a great reputation for Android tablets, so the support and so on, if it does what it does out of the box, you should expect that, but don't expect anything more because their support and their knowledge in terms of Android just isn't on par with the real Android companies. But it looks okay, but it is Acer. Then we got the Lenovo Mixx 700 or Mixx 700. What is that? It's pretty much an identical Surface Pro 3 clone with Core M. Same size, same hinge. Almost, they have the smartwatch hinge that they already had on the Lenovo Pro 3, so Yoga Pro 3. It looks nice. It has the same keyboard type, but it looks a little bit better because it's a Lenovo keyboard, but it's the same odd type cover with the mechanism to attach to the display and all that. I was never a fan of the type cover because of the wobbly mechanism. It is very thin and lightweight and portable, but it is no proper laptop keyboard or something like that. Otherwise, with Core M, it should be powerful enough. Definitely not as good as a Surface Pro 3 as on its own. Maybe a nice alternative if the price is right. But if it's not a lot cheaper than at least the i5 version of the Surface Pro 3, I don't see it so much happening because, yeah, and how they could get away with that design unless they maybe licensed it, I don't see it because it is pretty much an identical clone. Then we also saw the Dell XPS 2015 Skylake with USB Type-C already for charging. I reviewed the 2014 model, I reviewed the 2015 model, not with Skylake yet. The 2015 model is definitely the skip model that you shouldn't get. If you have the 14 model, maybe it's worth upgrading, but it's an expensive system. So if you buy something like a Dell XPS, it should be good for a few years. But if you don't have one, this is definitely one to look out for because super tiny bezels should be powerful enough. This time it should come with an actual recent GPU because the old one still had the quite dated 750 GeForce, so I hope to see at least a 970, 980 or something like that in it, but we will have to see. I think it could be nice, but it also seems to have the same keyboard that the Dell XPS 13 has. I have it right now for a re-review. I'm not a big fan of that keyboard, but yeah. What we also saw that was not on IFA, it is a Kickstarter project, I think, the Nexbit Robin. What to say? It looks quite nice. It's also small. I'm not quite sure about the specs yet. I think 5 or 5.2 inches, Snapdragon 810, batteries like 2700 milliamp hours. But I have a few issues with that. First of all, it's a little bit of a too edgy design. We don't have rounded curves, so it will be a little bit odd in the hands. It seems to be okay, but definitely too edgy in my perspective. Then no fingerprint reader. These days this seems to be important, but it is also focused cloud first. So you have only a 32GB version. That is my main gripe. Because yes, if you are in the US, if you have LTE speeds unlimited and all that, then a cloud device is maybe a nice alternative. But for what about all the other countries that have limited, even if have LTE, not an option, because for me something like a cloud device wouldn't be feasible. I just don't have the data for that. It is maybe nice to have, okay, I would say 32 gigabytes is just about enough to get through. I could get with 32, but their excuse, they say, no, we don't offer 16, 64, or 128, because you can do everything and it will be seen as it would be an SD card. But what it pretty much does is, once you have, I think 90% of a filled device, then it will outsource the data to the cloud. Personally, I think it will fail. It did get all the money, but they focus so much on the design that is quite nice, but not really organic or nice feel in the hand. And they make a lot of fuss about the cloud. But no one knows how their software will look like, which I think will be not very well supported, because they are a small Kickstarter company, and even if they make a decent first hardware, how about updates? Mostly these Kickstarter companies, they release the phone once and then you hear never ever anything of them again. So I think this will pretty much be the case here as well, because the specs itself and the price are nothing really outstanding anymore. It costs like 300 right now if you backed it, which is almost already gone, and then it will be, I know some sources say 350, some sources say 399, and for 399 the specs are nothing special anymore. So I say fail, but yes, we will see about that. But what actually leads me to something else, my non-FIFA topics and what I thought about. But this is quite interesting, because right now if I look at the blog posts and if I look at videos on YouTube, and there are certain specific specs when I drift off, when I'm not interested in a device. And I would like to know, what are the 3 specs you look first if you see something new coming up? And these 3 are the deciding factor if you are still interested or not. So for example, if you see the resolution and then say, okay, and then you see what are the 3 specs that one of, if these is not right, you are not interested. For me right now, still a very important one, and even more these days, is the CPU or the SoC. If I see a Snapdragon 810, I'm already a little bit waiting to see something what comes up. Also, what is always important, the resolution in some way. If I hear at least 1080p, I'm completely fine and then don't bother anymore. If it's, for example, for a laptop or so, 1080p should be a must-have. Also, storage maybe could be important for you. The camera is pretty much important for you. But just let me know, what are the 3 specs that you check first, and if one of those or maybe more of those don't fit, are a deal breaker for you. Because I think, especially now, watching out for what is interesting in IFA, this could be quite interesting. And the next thing that also ties into that, specs don't matter for the average Joe. I just recently saw this myself, because I had one colleague at work who bought my Nexus 5. He had it for like a year, and he broke it on his vacation. It's completely shattered in the front, and he thought about it. He said repairing it would cost too much, so it doesn't make much sense. He wanted a new one. What did he get? He got the Samsung Galaxy A5, which is definitely no bad phone, but if you just compare the specs, it has a Snapdragon 410, lower than the Nexus 5 had. It has a 720p display, lower than the 1080p on the Nexus 5. But what was important for him? It had a great camera, which didn't matter so much, because he was fine with the Nexus 5 camera. And if you are happy with the Nexus 5 camera, you are pretty much happy with everything. The display, since AMOLED, still looks absolutely fine on the A5, no problems here at all. But the slower CPU would for me be a little bit of a downer, but for him it wasn't, because the Snapdragon 410, let's be honest, with Lollipop, it runs fine. Absolutely no problem. If you are maybe someone hardcore that wants the fastest loading times, the fastest app switching times, it would be completely fine, since it also has 2 GB of RAM. But the important factor for him was the feel in hand and how it looks. He found it to be beautiful, he found it to be very premium feeling. And this for a price of 300, why not? But this shows me that the average Joe doesn't care. He sees a phone in a store and he picks the one he feels and has the best ergonomics in hand, or just looks premium and all that. And if the display pops at first, which an AMOLED does, it's nice for him, because the average Joe doesn't know what an S800 is or S410. He sees, yes, the S800 maybe has the higher number, But if he just checks it in the store, it won't bother him at all. So that makes no difference. But let me know what you think. And the word of the day, since we are talking all about IFA, it was also viewer submitted IFA. What does IFA mean? First of all, IFA, some people call it in America also IFA, but the whole word IFA in German is Internationale Funkausstellung. Let's get it out. International, Funk is kind of like radio, but in this case more like broadcast. And then Ausstellung is like convention or show, trade show, something like that. Exposition, or how is that called? Just so I don't get it wrong. Exposition, exhibition, show. That's what the dictionary said. But so see it like an international broadcast show. That's what it is. Yes. I hope this was still interesting, and I hope you want more of these. I'm not sure if I can keep it up every day, but I have most of the day free to catch up on everything and to get everything out. Right now, it is still mostly a recap of day 1 and a little bit a part of day 2. So we didn't see all the good stuff. This is still just more of an intro. The good stuff will be shown today later, and I will talk about these tomorrow if I get the time. So keep it up. Leave it a like. Please subscribe. Okay, until next time. Bye.